Hey again everyone, this is Dracus360. Been a while, hasn't it? My channel's been anything but active ever since my last update video in December of last year, so I more than understand if people have moved on or lost interest. But for those who have stuck around, I wanted to touch base and provide some updates on this channel's current project, Where We Cannot Go. For those interested in Where We Cannot Go, don't worry, I'm not here to announce that it's cancelled or anything like that. It isn't. But I imagine it's taken far longer than anyone following it might have thought it would. It's certainly taken longer than I thought it would. And today I hope to provide some context as to why. As usual with these sorts of videos, there'll be some other channel housekeeping towards the end. But this video is chiefly about Where We Cannot Go, a progress report of sorts, and a frank assessment of just what it is we've gotten ourselves into. We've intentionally kept details about Where We Cannot Go and its story hidden in order to protect it and ensure anyone watching it goes into its story as freshly as possible. But I realize this doesn't leave us much to share with you to assure you all we're still working on it. So today, I'm going to offer some more concrete information about Where We Cannot Go overall, more than I've ever shared in the past. No story spoilers, I promise. If you're interested in Where We Cannot Go and want a lengthier and frankly more personal discussion of it than I've ever done on this channel, stick around. For those unaware, Where We Cannot Go is a project I'm working on with my dear friend and collaborator, SuperShadow271, who, to my continued amazement, is still on board despite how long it's taken to complete. SuperShadow and I first came together about working on a story project all the way back in summer of 2015, if you can believe that. At the time, we just wanted to collaborate on some sort of hobby project, but we weren't sure of what. I shared with him some story ideas I had, including a rough outline for a sequel to my childhood YouTube series, What We Cannot See. For anyone watching who hasn't heard of it, What We Cannot See was a LEGO/Bionicle video series I started in 2008 and completed in 2013. Though embarrassing for me to watch and look back on, it's by far the most important project on my channel and has had a staying power nothing else I've ever done on the internet has. I originally intended to completely end the story with the Season 3 finale, which I uploaded in January of 2013. But the temptation to continue the story in some form always persisted. For all its many flaws, What We Cannot See was an established universe with its own history and characters that were known by people who watched the series back in the day. Eventually, SuperShadow and I narrowed down our possible projects to two options: LANDSONG, a story I came up with after I finished the original What We Cannot See, and a project that continued the story of What We Cannot See, which I remember once calling What We Cannot See: New World in its primordial stage. Glad we ditched that title. Well, needless to say, we chose to continue What We Cannot See, in part because it seemed more feasible than what LANDSONG would have demanded, and in part because the original What We Cannot See was more established and had a small following that we hoped was still subscribed to the channel. And so began the long brainstorming and script writing phase of our new project, which we eventually titled Where We Cannot Go. In creating this new story, we had several objectives. We wanted to create a sequel to What We Cannot See that picked up after the events of the What We Cannot See finale, staying true to the canon and lore of that old series. But realizing What We Cannot See's following was small, we also wanted to make this new story accessible to new audiences who had never seen What We Cannot See before. And finally, we wanted this new story to be a meaningful expansion of the universe and, to the degree it had any, themes of the original What We Cannot See, and not just some cheap sequel for the sake of a sequel. So to meet these goals, we found ourselves mired for years in a challenging story planning process. We worked together on creating the story, and I wrote the script for the series. And SuperShadow, whom I'm henceforth gonna call Alex, reviewed and offered edits to the script that I wrote. We went through several story and script revisions, and I'm proud of the fact that despite how much the story details have changed from when we first started brainstorming, the core premise of Where We Cannot Go has remained the same. Nevertheless, it took a very, very long time for us to get the story we wanted right. And we didn't complete the full script for the series until late 2019, a little before the COVID pandemic. When the pandemic did hit, Alex and I abided by the social distancing guidelines of the time, and therefore didn't meet to continue work on Where We Cannot Go. And, getting a little personal here, I lost a job during the pandemic, and fell back in with family, specifically the family that lived in the house of the original What We Cannot See. During that time, I found myself in quite a funk. I was fortunate to have enough to eat and a roof over my head, but I'd lost a lot of confidence in myself and the life momentum I felt during my college years. All I had was a part-time online gig and some personal and family commitments. Everything else was free time, and it's to my great shame that I didn't use the pandemic downtime more effectively on Where We Cannot Go. That's one reason it's taken so long. My own regrettable sloth. That said, there were always little things I was working on in the background, albeit the fun, unchallenging work. All throughout our brainstorming and scripting phase, and well into the pandemic, I'd been building the various LEGO and Bionicle models and mocks that the script called for. And there are a lot of mocks. Depending on what you count as a mock, there are well over 100 different LEGO models and props, specifically made for Where We Cannot Go. Some of the models weren't even built concurrently with all the parts they used up. This required me to film the footage I needed one set of mocks for, then to take those mocks down and recycle their parts for other mocks that other scenes required. In many ways, Where We Cannot Go has required me to marshal more resources of my LEGO and Bionicle collection than I've ever had to use for a single purpose. For our own records, I'm documenting every single LEGO and Bionicle mock I've ever made for Where We Cannot Go, especially ones I've had to take down for other props. And on that day when Where We Cannot Go is finally fully uploaded to YouTube, I will likely have enough material for 4 or 5 long mock compilation videos that I'll share on YouTube so everyone can see the models used for the series. That too was another objective Alex and I were firm about from the very beginning. We want to complete the entire series of Where We Cannot Go, every single episode start to finish, before releasing even episode 1. This is to avoid the trap I fell into when making What We Cannot See as a kid. One day you get the creative urge to tell a story and film something for YouTube, then the next day the urge vanishes, or life happens and you get caught up in that and fail to complete the project you set out to do at the start. Even though I eventually managed to finish What We Cannot See, there were some major hiatuses and gaps between episode uploads, and the quality between even episodes in the same season could vary wildly. So to keep things consistent, we're only going to release Where We Cannot Go when the entire series is finished, and that itself has proven a challenge that I, at least, was hardly prepared for. I think the biggest reason Where We Cannot Go has taken so long is pure, simple underestimation. Hubris, if you like. Speaking again for myself, I really just thought it would be easy. I thought we'd come up with the story, build the mocks, and then the series would just sort of come into place from there. And why wouldn't I think that? What little I knew about filmmaking, if you can even call it that, was what I learned from What We Cannot See. And all that involved was setting up a scene, posing figures, talking over the footage into my camcorder, then arranging the clips and adding sound effects and music in Windows Movie Maker. Then publish, and bam, you've got a new episode. But Where We Cannot Go is different. Alex and I want it to be better than What We Cannot See. Leagues better. The best content ever uploaded to this channel. We want better mocks, better writing, a tighter story, and a massive technical improvement over What We Cannot See. Better lighting, better picture quality, better sound design, better animation. So far, I believe we've met those goals, but it's increased our workload 100-fold. We're not doing full stop motion, in part because we want to capture the natural movement of things in the background of certain shots, such as trees swaying or water rippling in the wind, both of which require leaving the camera running on certain shots. But the characters move much more in every shot than they ever would have in What We Cannot See. Their heads will tilt, or they'll raise their hands or adjust their postures as they talk, to show off body language and make up for the lack of facial expression in LEGO or Bionicle figures. All this in mind, a single take of a single scene can take hours to film, sometimes a full day or multiple days depending on what the scene demands. And with that, let's get into the overall length of Where We Cannot Go as both a story and video series. The story of Where We Cannot Go is divided into 16 episodes, each of varying length. Some episodes are much, much longer than others, but I estimate each episode will be at least 20 minutes long. This is based on a working cut of one episode I've been assembling, and how long it takes to voice out some of the more dialogue-heavy scenes in the script. The completed script of all episodes totals over 620 pages in length, though it is written in a more traditional screenplay format, and so has a lot of negative space on each page. Still, I hope this illustrates the amount of work we've given ourselves. But that's just the nature of this story. It's long. It has many subplots and many characters. Simply put, it's as long as we believe it needs to be. When the entire series is finished, we plan to upload each episode on a weekly basis, Fridays being the day we think each episode will drop. Episodes 1 and 2 were originally meant to be a single episode, but we felt it was too much of an ask for new audiences to sit for that long through an opening episode, and so we split it into 2 parts you'll be able to watch back to back or separately. Our plan, though, is to release the first 2 episodes of the series on the same day, then 1 episode a week until every episode is uploaded. Now, how much of this work have we actually gotten done? Well, that's where I'm less proud. I'd say right now we're only about 55, maybe 60% done with all of the filming. A lot of that is based on schedule and location availability. As I mentioned in my last update video, the old house of What We Cannot See was sold almost 1 year ago to date. That meant I had to blitz my way through every single scene our script required at that house before it was sold. Incredibly, I did, and indeed if I was full-time employed at the time, I never would have been able to do that. I was fortunate enough to eventually find full-time work after that intensive shoot. But it is a traditional Monday through Friday job, so I'm limited to weekends and PTO to film. There are some scenes that are so long and intense they simply can't be shot over the course of a weekend. And with the sale of the What We Cannot See house, and needing to be close to work, I've had to find my own housing, which means I've got bills to pay, and need the job I'm currently in. But there are smaller scenes I've been able to gradually chip away at on weekends. I recently used up all my PTO this year to pound out another collection of really difficult scenes, but there is a lot left to go, some of which include scenes so intense I don't know how we're going to film them. But just as we have for every other challenge we've encountered so far, we'll find a way. Now, if you watched What We Cannot See, you know that the entire story took place inside a single house, one location. Other locations, like the mysterious Old Land, were mentioned by some of the characters, but in terms of what we saw on screen, everything took place in that one house. Where We Cannot Go, once again, is different. One reason we chose the title Where We Cannot Go is to emphasize that travel and visiting new locations is a major part of the story of this series. Much of the story does still take place in the What We Cannot See house, but I'd say only about 40 to 50%. There is a world beyond that house that the characters will find themselves journeying through, and so we often choose to film a battery of scenes when we have a block of time and access to a particular location. Where those locations are? I'm afraid you'll have to wait and see. You might be wondering if there are any story details I can actually share with you. The answer is yes, but not many. Let's start with the fact that Where We Cannot Go is a sequel to What We Cannot See, and so its story proper takes place sometime after the events of What We Cannot See's finale. In true What We Cannot See tradition, there's a considerable story gap between the end of What We Cannot See and the start of the main story of Where We Cannot Go. It won't be as bad as the Season 1, Season 2 story gap of What We Cannot See, where what happened between seasons wouldn't be properly cleared up until years later. No, for Where We Cannot Go, everything you need to know about what happened in the story gap will be slowly doled out over the course of the series. How about the characters? Will there be any returning characters from What We Cannot See? The answer, again, is yes, but not many. How many, I won't say. But most of Where We Cannot Go's roster of characters is completely new. In similar What We Cannot See tradition, though, returning characters will receive different armor or outfits than what we last saw them wearing in What We Cannot See. You might call their new outfits their Where We Cannot Go forms. Who these characters are, I also won't say, but if you know the story of What We Cannot See and have seen the few images I've provided related to Where We Cannot Go, you might be able to guess. What about the plot? On that too, I really can't say much. If I can cryptically sum it up in a single sentence. Sometime after the end of What We Cannot See Season 3, something very sudden and unexpected happens in the New Land house that throws the world into turmoil and catapults the narrative forward. Even that doesn't fully explain it, but anything more would give away more than I'd like. What I can say is that no one needs to go back and rewatch any of the old What We Cannot See episodes to understand anything in Where We Cannot Go. In one way, I hope people don't go back and watch them, both because I find old What We Cannot See profoundly embarrassing, and because there were lots of retcons I made to make the canon more cohesive. If you want to learn the canon story of What We Cannot See ahead of Where We Cannot Go, I put together a timeline video that covers the entire canon history of What We Cannot See. Link to that is in this video's description. That timeline video, and Where We Cannot Go, will be all you need to have a full understanding of the story of this universe, once Where We Cannot Go is completed. That said, if you have seen all the old What We Cannot See episodes and have been following the series and this channel for a long time, there will be little nods and references to What We Cannot See throughout Where We Cannot Go. They'll never be story essential to know, but they'll be there for those with the eyes to spot them. Lastly on Where We Cannot Go, I owe it to you guys to talk about what we still have left to do, and I'm afraid to say it's quite a lot. Right now, we're still knee-deep in the filming process. Once that's done, which may not be for some time, we'll then have the video editing process. This will involve editing together the massive volumes of footage we'll have accumulated by then, adding or creating our own sound and visual effects, doing the voice work for the characters, and obtaining the necessary music and soundtracks we'll need. As far as voice work goes, I'll be voicing every returning character in the story, plus other characters that I have specific voices I want to give them. Alex will be voicing some of the other characters, and some of our other friends have expressed interest in doing voice work as well. The music we'll use is another beast. This is no longer 2008. We have to be very cautious about YouTube's copyright regime and what music we can and can't use. Alex has done amazing work tracking down huge libraries of some surprisingly evocative royalty-free music. We think a number of those tracks can fit a great many of our scenes. However, there are some scenes that, in my mind, simply require very specific licensed tracks. And it's my hope that once we're at that stage, we will contact the artist and request permission to use their music. If push comes to shove and they're not down, we'll of course find alternatives, royalty-free or otherwise. But this story, its ideas, characters, and scenes, have been percolating in my head for so long that there are just some pieces of music I would hate not to be able to use on certain scenes. But we'll cross that bridge when we come to it. As far as the video editing goes, Alex and I will still be collaborating, but he will be doing most of the work on that front. The plan is I will send him working cuts of the episodes with footage cut the way I imagine it should be, after which we'll then review and discuss potential changes. Finally, he will use my working cut as a guide and incorporate any agreed upon changes into the final product, onto which he will add all special sound and visual effects. While I'm on the subject of my old friend, I would be remiss if I didn't share one critical moment from years ago in which Alex single-handedly saved Where We Cannot Go. It was at some point before we finished the full series script. I don't remember all the details of that night, only that I was in college at the time and I was driving around the city my college was located in. I was at a low point in my life, struggling with something personal, school, or work-related, and I just looked at the enormity of Where We Cannot Go from a distance and confessed to Alex that I just didn't think we could ever finish Where We Cannot Go, that we bit off more than we could chew, and that we should call the whole thing off before we got roped into something we couldn't hope to finish. In short, I was prepared to do to Where We Cannot Go what I'd done to LANDSONG, to Islanders, to a host of other story projects I wanted to upload to this channel, but never did. I was prepared to give up. But not Alex. On that night, paraphrasing to the best of my memory, Alex told me that, while he would respect my decision to quit if that's what I wanted, he didn't think I should. Alex said he thought we had in Where We Cannot Go something truly special on our hands. Something that was more than worth all the blood, sweat, and tears it was going to take to get done. And in my moment of weakness, he picked me up and implored me to stay the course, to not give up. That's when I knew. All I needed was one other voice to help me back on my feet and convince me this thing was worth doing. Where We Cannot Go in many ways is a big fat vanity project for me, a continuation of a silly story I made growing up that a rare friend of rare quality somehow was crazy enough to sign on to and keep me involved in when I was ready to bail. I've given up on so many things in my life, so many projects and dreams I've tossed aside out of stress or exhaustion. For some reason, God saw fit to put Alex into my life and prevent me from giving up on this one. Alex is a real, true, blue friend. And buddy, if you're watching this, I'm lucky to have you in my life. For those looking forward to Where We Cannot Go, please show Alex some love and check out his channel, which I've linked below. Alex has just resumed uploading the commentaries he and I did years ago on the old What We Cannot See videos, which we made to acquaint him with the story of What We Cannot See ahead of Where We Cannot Go. When I listen to them, I can't help but recoil at some of my remarks and behavior. I was young and foolish, and being in college gave me this false sense of accomplishment and pride that I really think shows in how I present myself. I thought I was hot stuff, and way smarter than I actually am. I don't know, I'm not pleased with my behavior and all those. But it's a snapshot of who I was back in those days, just as the seasons of What We Cannot See are snapshots of who I was in my youth. But even bearing all that in mind, the commentaries still have some very funny moments between the two of us. They'll also give you a sense of Alex's personality and the voice he's bringing to Where We Cannot Go. And the commentaries themselves offer fun trivia for old What We Cannot See fans to enjoy. In addition to that, Alex is a regular gaming streamer on Twitch. Occasionally I'm able to join him for a stream, as I did here in this footage of us playing Half-Life Decay. That's another way to get a sense of who the guy is and another avenue to show him some love. I hope you all do in some way, because he's the best friend a man could ask for. But he does suffer from halitosis and profuse body odor, which he really should address at some point, if I'm being quite frank. For now, that's all I can really share about Where We Cannot Go. I hope it's enough to keep you all interested and give assurance that we're still moving forward with it. But before I go, a few things to cover related to the channel. In my last update video, I said I'd be willing to upload old videos of mine that I took down years ago for those who wanted to see them again, provided I still had them available. Recently, someone asked me to make available again the old in-depth reviews I did for the 2008 Mystica line of Bionicle sets. To that end, you can now access the full playlist on my channel. Like What We Cannot See, they're pretty embarrassing for me, but for those who liked them for nostalgia value, I'm happy to bring them back. I also brought back 2 other old videos I took down a while ago that are now in my miscellaneous unlisted videos playlist. Links to both playlists are in this video's description. Additionally, I recently learned that YouTube implemented a security update where, if one didn't notify them by July 23, 2021, they would make all unlisted videos uploaded before 2017 private, thereby blocking access. In my case, this meant all of What We Cannot See and all of my older unlisted videos. I'm sorry I didn't notice this sooner and take steps to avoid this change, but I've gone back and manually made all of the old What We Cannot See episodes and other affected videos unlisted again. You should be able to watch them all again on my channel, but if you have any problems doing so, please let me know. Well, that's all I've got for now. I hope you're all as excited as we are for the day we finally share with you the complete series of Where We Cannot Go. This project has been unlike anything I've ever tackled, and will be the largest project my channel will likely ever host. There's something very mysterious about Where We Cannot Go, something I can't put my finger on, something I feel anytime I think about its story or its characters, something that pushes me through even the most back-breaking filming work I've done so far. Getting our footage from the old What We Cannot See house under such a time crunch was by far the most difficult and rewarding challenge of my life so far, I'm not kidding. And coming off of my most recent 2-week shoot has given me a similar sense of fulfillment. I can only imagine what other challenges and joys this series will bring. And I've been lucky to have you all along for the ride. Some of you as far back as 2008 when I first started What We Cannot See. 2008. That was well over a decade ago. The golden age of BioTube. Man, we're getting old. Thank you all for watching. Feel free to comment below and say hi. It means the world to me that you're all still here. Until next time, this has been Dracus360. Take care, and stay safe.
Dampening conduits. Dampening conduits. Get that dampening shotgun out of my dampening face. Fuck. I didn't expect that to be as funny as it sounded.